The South African Constitution has been hailed as one of the most progressive in the world, but there are questions on whether it serves the interests of all South Africans. Now, President Cyril Ramapahosa is set to open the National Conference on the Constitution today, which will focus on the rule of law, accountability, and social and economic justice. For this discussion, let's bring in former Constitutional Court Justice Johann Kriegler, who joins us via our video link this morning. Justice Kriegler, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you for giving us your time this morning on the AM Report. So the President is opening this National Conference on the Constitution today. And part of what he's going to be discussing, apparently, is around transforming and building an independent judiciary. What comes to mind for you with that sort of topic of discussion?
Good morning, Michelle. Always pleasant to talk to you and to your viewers. You know, I'm in two minds when people talk about reforming. Number one, as a lawyer and a conservative person, therefore, I don't believe that you change something unless it needs to be changed. So I want to see what the changes are and what the reasons are why people say they want to change. Exactly the same applies for me to the Constitution. I want to know what is wrong and how do you intend fixing it.
So when we talk about, the fact that we have the most progressive constitution, many will say, in the world, but that it doesn't arguably serve all of South Africans in the same way, Justice Kriegler. Is that a fair comment to make?
Michelle, it's an unfair comment because it's fundamentally misdirected. We have the finest constitution in the world, yes, but constitutions don't make societies work. Societies make their constitutions work. Our Constitution says right at the beginning, we the people of South Africa promise the following things and we will do the following things. We have certainly not lived up to the Constitution. That's not the Constitution's fault, that's our fault. We must have a close look at how we as society, all of us, from the President down to the lowest of us, how we have performed in accordance with our Constitution. That is what, for me, what the call on Human Rights Day is a call to the people, to us, to you, to me, to see, to look, examine ourselves and see how we have behaved in comparison with the promises we made in the Constitution.
It sounds to me, Justice Kriegler, that perhaps you're not in support even of a conference like this taking place.
Sorry, I didn't follow that.
It sounds to me like you're not really supporting a conference like this taking place, because if the conference is entitled Reflections and the Road Ahead, you're saying it's not the Constitution that's to blame for the position that we're finding ourselves in at the moment. It's not the Constitution that needs to be reformed or reviewed.
Exactly, but that doesn't mean that we do not have to do every single year on Human Rights Day, we must do stocktake. How have we behaved? How have we as a society, how have we as a national government, as a national executive, as a national legislature, as a national judiciary, how as we as voters, as citizens, as members of parliament, how have we measured up to the demands of our Constitution? It's a call for accountability for all of the organs of state and for all of the citizens of state, a continuous call to re-examination, to self-examination, to stocktake. For the judiciary, for instance, every judge, every magistrate, every lawyer in the country to say, how is our judiciary measuring up to the demands that the Constitution makes of them in Chapter 8 of the Constitution?
Justice Kriegler, does the judiciary have its own mechanisms to do exactly that?
The judiciary does not have its own mechanism alone. The judiciary certainly has its own mechanism through the Chief Justice and the heads of court and the important additional organ is the Judicial Service Commission, which actually has the primary responsibility. The Constitution appoints it. It is the agency that hires and fires judges, to put it bluntly and briefly. It has not been functioning properly. It has not done its job properly, and it certainly needs to be reformed, to have a close look at itself and see why it isn't performing and to fix it.
It depends on who you talk to when we look at the performance of the judiciary, right? There have been political statements made about judges being biased one way or the other, and yet those in support of the judiciary will say it's the last line of defense that we've had insofar as corruption, for example, in our country is concerned. Justice Kriegler, what would be your comment on that statement?
Michelle, once again, the world is a complicated place. Things are not that simple. Certainly the judiciary over the last 25 years has shown itself generally to be fully responsible and capable of fulfilling the role as the last line of protection of the Constitution. It has generally performed well. It has generally been recognized by the universal applause of the legal community around the globe as doing an excellent job. But, of course, there are cases that are open to criticism. There are cases where the Judicial Service Commission has not worked with sufficient speed and obvious efficiency to deal with judges who have misbehaved, and that is one of the issues that the JSC, the Judicial Service Commission, must do re-examination, look at itself and say, why have we not done our job?
Former Constitutional Court Justice Johann Kriegler, let me thank you for your time this morning. Always a pleasure talking to you, getting your perspective on this issue as the President gears up to give that opening address at that conference, which is happening from today. It's a national conference on the Constitution, reflections on the road ahead.